Hi guys, Jasmo here, and today I'm gonna share with you my first impressions of the Affliction League, which is coming to Path of Exile. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the league in general, what I like about it, what I don't like. We're gonna talk about the patch notes a little bit as well, the new Ascendancies that we're getting, and I'm also gonna address the question I'm getting very frequently now, which is Heist dead? Are you gonna be running Heist? What's going on with Heist? Is it just completely dead? Is it gonna be good? Is it gonna be bad? So I'm gonna talk about that as well. But let's start with the league itself. In general, I think they put a lot of effort into this league. This is definitely going to be one of the better leagues compared to the recent past, and especially the fact that this league is something that you can find in maps and it affects the maps that you're running is definitely a huge plus. A lot of people will definitely engage with it. The league mechanic appears at the beginning of the map, so it's probably going to be placed similarly to the Delirium Mirror. You do the stuff inside of it, and then when you come out, your map is going to be buffed. You're going to have more quantity, more rarity, and more currency dropping from different monsters. So that's going to create a nicer mapping experience. It's going to incentivize players to interact with the league mechanic, and the rewards are also really strong. These rewards are basically build enabling, and that's always nice to see because you can have some variety between the leagues. So I definitely like the league mechanic itself. The rewards are really good, and the Ascendancy classes are pretty strong. There is a lot of really good stuff. I'm probably going to be prioritizing early on stuff like this thing, like 30% increased movement speed if you have equipped boots with no socketed gems. Usually early on while leveling, you focus on boots that have good stats on them, so like good movement speed and stuff like that, and you prioritize that movement speed over like having 4 sockets or other things that you will have on other items. So you're actually not going to be losing that much, so the earlier you can get this, the better. So that's what I would be probably rushing, the 30% movement speed, and then I would be looking into specializing into other stuff. I'm probably gonna go for like a very generic setup with this Ascendancy. This Ascendancy is really good. You're basically gonna be finding different charms that you can put in there, and you can basically build your own thing, but it really depends on what you're gonna be finding. I think they're tradable as well, but they're not modifiable, which is really nice. So you're gonna be able to basically purchase the stuff that you need and just create a build that you really want to make. I really like this. There's a lot of flexibility in this. There's a lot of variance between the Ascendancies. It's really cool. So with this much build enabling stuff, I think we're gonna see a lot of really cool builds. I really like the Ascendancies, and before we see like all of the gems, it's gonna be really hard to like theory craft the perfect builds because we also don't know like all the charms, what's available on them. I don't think we know exactly what all of these curses do, so there is a lot of stuff that is still unknown. We don't know all the all the tinctures as well, so that's gonna also basically be needed in order to theory craft all of the builds, but there is huge potential, so that's really good. What else do we have this league? We've got the Ascendancy classes, we've got the tinctures, we've got the corpses. I think someone was speaking about this earlier, I think Gazi, that this is not as good as it seems. It definitely is something that you're gonna have to see like how the economy works. If you can purchase a bunch of these corpses, then maybe it's fine, but keep in mind that specters do die and it's not that easy to sustain them, and also people who are not focusing on specters, like if you think that you're gonna be using like a really cool specter while playing like a non-minion focused build, you can forget about this, like unless it's gonna be for like a specific encounter where you use the specter as like a one button thing where you summon it just before like a phase of a boss in order to like have more burst damage or something like that, so that you can kill the boss before it actually hits the specter, so that the specter still survives. That might be like one potential use of this. We'll see, but definitely don't get too hyped for them because they're gonna be dying. What else do we have? We got the Primalist thing with the charms. We've got new uniques, so there is gonna be a bunch of new uniques, and some of them are actually going to be going into Heist, which is I think pretty cool. I like that there is a lot of focus on making content exclusive to the league mechanic it comes from. This league seems like, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I think they're doing a really good job in terms of the balance, and it really shows that I think Mark Dion, right, is back on working on POE 1, and like it really shows. Like it's a big difference because there are so many like just good and smart changes this league compared to the leagues before. I really like the approach that's being done now. So this chest, plus 12 to skill, to level of socketed skill gems. This is a little bit confusing because you have to really be careful with the wording, right? So you can basically treat it as +10, right? Because the moment you put a skill gem into this, now you have -2, right? The moment you put another skill gem, now you have -4, right? So you can kind of calculate that if you put one skill gem, you have 10. If you put 2 skill gems, that is 16 levels, right? If you put 3 skill gems, that is what is it, 18 levels, right? And then if you put 4, I think that's less, right? 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8, so that'll be only 4, so that'll be again 16, right? So I think 3 gems is the most levels you get if you're just using active skill gems, but you can also use something like Empower, for example, right? So you can use a single skill gem, so you get +10. Then you could use another, so you get +8, but that can be, for example, Empower, right? So you get +8 plus the Empower. So that can be a really huge like early game, for example, use for this, right? Because you don't need to 6-link it, and you can basically have a higher power of a skill by using this. So that's one potential use of this. Also, like Herald of Thunder, stuff like that is probably going to be, people are probably going to try to use with this. Then we have another helmet. This is like an interesting Reflect helmet. This could be potentially used on something like maybe Animate Guardian. If you can make Animate Guardian survive without Mask of the Stitch Demon, then you can potentially use it to debuff the resistances of a boss, right? That's also like an interesting use for this. We have the Untouched Soul, which gives you life for each empty red socket in any equipped item, accuracy for each of the empty green sockets, mana, and then elemental resistances for each of the empty blue and white sockets. So this is like an interesting amulet for like some build that's gonna stack something, right? So like if you're like an accuracy stacker, life stacker, or mana stacker or something like that, there are potential uses for this. But it's probably going to be used in some kind of like maybe like a supportive build or something like that, right? I don't think this is going to be like very popular in just regular builds. Return of Ultimatum. This is one of the things that I mentioned that it's going to be much more focused on league mechanics, providing the rewards and being like the primary source for providing the rewards that they drop. So Ultimatum is going to be the source of catalysts now because they're going to be removing the Metamorph. And I think that's actually huge, right? The fact that you're going to be able to focus on this is going to make it so that the things are more valuable, right? Because rather than just farming whatever is the most like currency per hour strategy and still getting all of the stuff, right? And this stuff enters economy, let's say like fossils, right? Like that's why people don't like that fossils are available everywhere else, but not so much in Delve, right? There are still Delve exclusive fossils, but there's a lot of fossils and other stuff available everywhere else. And so they're doing the change now where the catalysts are not going to be available so much in other league mechanics. Even Heist is gonna like lose the specific Metamorph rewards, right? And the catalysts are going to be pretty much like exclusively available from this. They're still gonna be randomly dropped in many different places, but much fewer of them. So it's gonna be primarily from the Ultimatum. There's gonna be a lot of people focusing on Ultimatum. I think this is gonna be probably like decently rewarding. It's like an in-map mechanic that can be scaled with the Atlas skill tree, and there is a lot of changes. Like if we click here on the Ultimatum changes, there is so much stuff for Ultimatum, right? A lot of this is basically the passive skill tree, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to play around with, but definitely it's going to be something that a lot of people will engage with. So there's going to be a lot of inscribed ultimatums. You can potentially make a build that runs inscribed ultimatums. You can 5-to-1 them as well if you have like some really, really bad ones that you cannot run. And we're also getting tainted catalysts, so we can put catalysts on corrupted items, which is really interesting. Then we have the transfigured gems. So this is the biggest change, right? The biggest meta shakeup is that they are removing a lot of the altered quality skill gems and the enchants, and we're getting a bunch of these gems. So here's the big take from this, right? And I'm gonna also look at the patch notes here. So where's the skill gem changes? Okay. So a lot of people I noticed in the community are looking at this and they think they're getting buffed, right? They look at this and they're like, oh, contagion. Okay, that's actually not great. But it's like, where's like a good example? Okay, let's say Cobra Lash, right? So we look at the Cobra Lash and we look at, okay, this is actually one of the biggest buffs. But still, you have to take into account the fact that you are losing alternate quality gems, right? And with alternate quality gems, you're losing a lot of damage. You're losing potentially, because we don't know yet, alternate quality curses, right? The alternate quality curses can be like 5 to 10% more damage. You're losing different alternate quality gems that provide you with debuffs, right? There are some like alternate qualities that give you, for example, like exposure, or they give you something like unnerve or something like that, right? So you're potentially losing those things if they don't make make them into different gems, right? So there is a lot of stuff that we're actually losing. Another huge thing that we're losing is the mana reservation efficiency enchants for specific auras. So we're losing that completely. Like all the enchants on the helmets, like a bunch of builds that if you don't have like a build enabling enchant for your skill, people would be using like Grace or Determination reservation efficiency enchant on their helmet, which would give you like 30% reservation efficiency. That is just gone, right? Completely gone. Then we have like 10% penetration or 120% crit or 80% chance to avoid being stunned if you killed recently, or like mana regeneration. All of this stuff from the boot enchants, gone. Like massive amount of regen from the glove enchant, gone. Like all of these enchants are massive. So most builds are actually getting nerfed, right? If we're looking at this, people are saying, oh, but well, you're getting all of these ascendancies, right? You're getting all of these and all of this, so we're getting buffed, right? Because we're getting all of this power. But what people are forgetting is that this is basically like a neutral thing with losing the tattoos, right? We're losing tattoos, but we're getting this. Arguably, I think tattoos probably were stronger than this for a lot of the build, especially things like, for example, Tornado Shot, right? The tattoos were insane for Tornado Shot. I doubt there's going to be something that is as strong in these things as like getting so many additional projectiles, right? So we're losing a huge amount of power. Tattoos being replaced by these ascendancies is arguably also a loss, right? So there is a lot of stuff that is just being removed, and we're being compensated a little bit, but in my opinion, this is still unnerved, right? I don't mind it, but factually, right, this is still a nerf. And people are looking at a lot of these different buffs and like thinking that they're actually really crazy, but it's not so crazy, right? Like if you look at something like where is it, brand, right? There's this brand, not Armageddon brand, but it's the other one, brand recall, penance brand. Yeah, penance brand. People are looking at these numbers and I'm like, oh my god, this is going from 18 to 27 to like 2.5 thousand to 3.8 thousand, and damage effectiveness is going to 570 from 40. This is insane, right? But what they don't understand is how this skill actually works, right? The fact that you're losing the ability to bounce it between targets with the different mechanics, right? They're not going to be exploding now, so you're not going to be able to like clear very well with hit-based brand. It's going to be extremely clunky and slow. You're losing so much clear speed with this. And also, if you look at the damage, like people are doing the math on the damage in terms of ignite build, which is the only way that you would play this now, you're losing about 50% damage as well, right, on ignite version of this skill. So there is a lot of stuff that people think are buffs that are actual nerfs, right? Because people just don't understand how this stuff works and how this stuff works mechanically, right? It's like this skill just ruined mechanically, right? I really like this skill. I like Penance Brand. It's one of the most interesting skills in the game because of all of the conversions that you can do, because of the breakpoints of the attack speed, because of how like fun it is to play, because you just point somewhere and you deal damage there. Now it's no longer going to work like that. So I definitely think this is a big nerf. Right, some things have been buffed, don't get me wrong, right? There's definitely stuff that has been buffed, such as Cobra Lash, such as Divine Ire has been buffed, for example, right? There's a lot of stuff that has been buffed, but a lot of stuff has been also nerfed, and in general we're just losing a lot of power that people are not seeing here, right? So that's like an important takeaway from this. We got a bunch of Val skill changes. The fact that we're losing like so many alternate quality supports is really huge. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here in the patch notes that is really impactful? So the uniques being rebalanced, there's going to be a lot of stuff changed with the uniques. And I'm really happy to see some of these changes, right? The Calm Spirit, this is actually one of the silliest things that I've seen in the patch notes, right? Because the problem is not the Calm Spirit unique gloves, right? The unique gloves are fine. The problem is Berserk. Berserk is an absolutely insanely overpowered skill, right? If we type Berserk, okay, 10% increased cooldown recovery rate instead of increased attack damage. This is literally a buff, right? This is literally a buff to the strongest, to the single strongest skill gem in the game, by far. There is nothing as powerful in this game as Berserk as a single skill gem. Nothing compares. Nothing is even close, right? This gives you a more movement speed multiplier, more attack damage multiplier, like more attack speed multiplier. So it's just multiplier that scales with another multiplier, and then more movement speed, which is like the most valuable stat on any character. This is the most insane skill in the game. And the fact that it's actually getting not nerfed, and instead they're nerfing the gloves, just is very problematic, right? Eventually it's gonna get nerfed. Eventually GG is gonna realize how insane that skill is when people just start doing like ridiculous shit just to play berserk. But yeah, that's one of the changes that I think is really silly, that they actually did not nerf berserk but instead nerfed the gloves. So where is the okay, rest of the okay, the counts were unique gloves, then replica dragon fangs. This had to be nerfed definitely. This is way too strong. I think it's still way too strong, but it's at least getting nerfed, and I will put a little bit in line. Heat Shiver being nerfed, very good. This nerf is also something that is just done well. It's not completely destroyed, right? It still works, it's still good, it's still a lot of damage, it's like in line with other good uniques, but it's not like insanely overpowered to the point where everybody wants to convert everything to cold just to be able to use Heat Shiver, right? So I like this change a lot. This is pretty good. Then we've got things like, what else did I see here? Ralakesh Impatience, right? That's another important thing. So let me read this again. So instead of lose, it now has count as having maximum number of blah blah blah, right? I have maximum number of charges. So this is, I saw a lot of people misunderstand this. You don't actually get the charges, right? Basically what it says is that if you have another item or like a passive or something else, if some skill or something, that let's say it says while at maximum power charges gain something, then that condition is now going to be met regardless of how many charges you have. That's all it does. This basically gives you the tag. Your character gets a tag. Oh, hey, this character is at maximum charges even if you have no charges, right? That's all it does now. So you don't get any charges. You don't get benefits from charges. Some people were trying to say that, hey, you get the attack speed and you get the crit chance, but you don't get the actual charges. No, that's not how it works. You just get the conditional for other things that require you to be at maximum charges. That's all it does now, which still can be useful in certain situations, right? For example, if you have items that let you get to the maximum charges, then you get some huge benefit, but when you like attack, you lose those charges or something like that, right? This can be useful for a lot of different mechanics, but it's no longer gonna be abused in like boss killer ice trap builds and stuff like that. So that's a pretty good change as well, in my opinion, because that like cheesing like that, like all of your charges without having to actually figure out how to gain them, I don't think that was a good thing for the game. Then we have a lot of stuff that is being balanced. So you can see here that a lot of these different things are basically bases from the Heist, right? So these are like mostly Heist bases that are basically across the board, all of them being buffed. So that's pretty interesting, right? Alternate like experimental bases are being buffed, and some of them are being buffed in a crazy way where it's actually gonna influence the meta a lot. Like things like Simplex Amulet, right? Now has -2 prefix modifiers, and instead of -1, and it has 100% increased explicit modifier magnitudes. So you can have something like +2, for example, like +2 to all skill gems, and then people were looking at making like an MF amulet, right? So you can make, you can have like mana reservation and quantity on it as well, right? So you can make really crazy amulets, really crazy rings now, and that's pretty important for the Heist, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Ruthless specific changes, don't really care. Kerak modes are actually Expedition, Blood, they're actually pretty bad as I'm looking at this. And 3 chaos for 3 rogue exiles. That's like, I mean, it's worth it early for the chaos recipe. I think you still, you still will get more, I guess, than you lose. But yeah, this is not a great set of stuff, so I think a lot of people are going to be using maybe the 7th gate and stuff like that. Ultimatum for 10 chaos, that's interesting. People might be just using that. There's also going to be Ultimatum Scarab and stuff like that. Huge change actually for speedrunning, okay? So we get shift click, okay, for where is it? Pressing control click on NPCs in the campaign that you can sell items to now brings up the sell items interface. So this is huge. So basically, I hope this works with vendor walk. I don't see why it shouldn't, right? So you basically control click on the NPC and then click away, and you can sell stuff immediately, so you don't have to do this additional click. So you're saving like a second or two as well, right? So this is pretty interesting. I like to see that. It's basically more QoL, a little bit more QoL. So that's really, really nice. And then we have a lot of bug fixes, and some of these bug fixes, a lot of people don't read the bug fixes, but there is actually a huge change here. For example, this fix a bug where projectiles from skills supported by returning projectiles were only dealing less damage with hits while returning. So the returning projectiles support was apparently giving you full damage on the hit forward and then less damage on the hit backwards. Now it's going to be giving less damage on the hit forwards and backwards, right? So this is a pretty significant nerf, right? This is a pretty significant nerf to returning projectiles. It's still going to be used, but it's a very, very powerful gem. So hopefully it's not going to be like mandatory. Maybe there's going to be like mathematically other stuff that's going to be better. So those are some of the most important changes. Now let's talk about Heist, okay? So here's the deal with Heist. They're basically, Heist... okay, so Metamorph rewards from Expedition, Betrayal, Heist are being removed from that. But there's a lot of changes to Heist. So first of all blueprints are now gonna have the same rewards at the end, which is basically going to be randomly between currency, trinkets, what else is there? Replicas, experimented bases, enchanted armaments, and gems are removed, right? So it's actually just three different types of rewards are going to be randomly in every single blueprint. That change is actually really interesting because it potentially makes Heist significantly better, right? So the thing is going to be, the thing that's, people are going to run Heist less, right? I already seen like the general sentiment of people on Reddit and in different discords and stuff like that is going to be that Heist is going to be worse, right? And from what I see, the Heist is going to be significantly better, right? One of the reasons is that the weakest reward that was present in Heist was definitely the trinkets and currency, right? That was by far the weakest reward. So you're still going to be seeing trinkets and currency in every single one of them, but they're going to be buffed, right? Trinkets were usually like, you could usually find a trinket that was better than the stack of currency that you had. And you had a lot of like weak currencies that are going to be now buffed. Even if it's going to be like, all of the like chance orbs and all of that stuff is going to be replaced with like just like 8 chaos or stuff like that you would see normally. That's still going to be pretty good because you're going to have very, very consistent rewards, and you're going to basically rely on the value of everything else in the blueprints. Another thing that's a huge buff for Heist is this change. So quality, okay. Oh, there's going to be a lot of it. It's going to be freaking hard to find. Oh yeah, the vendor recipe for turning a level 20 gem into 20 quality level 1 version of that gem no longer works with skill gems, and the benefit quality provides to damage dealing skills is now more powerful. The vendor recipe can now only be used with non-awakened support gems. So you can still flip your support gems, but you cannot flip your skill gems, which means the GCPs are going to be more valuable, right? People are going to need a lot more GCPs. You're going to look at things like auras, you're gonna look at things like curses, right? People run multiple curses, people run like support brands that you want some quality on. People run a lot of different stuff that they want quality on, plus of course their main skills, plus like a secondary main skill, plus like a movement skill. So there's gonna be a lot of that, right? So everybody is gonna need like 120 GCPs to like get their most important stuff on their build. So this is a huge buff to Heist. In Heist you can farm a lot of GCPs, and you can farm a lot of quality gems, which you can then in turn vendor recipe for more GCPs, right? Because if you're selling quality gems of like combined quality of 40 or 40 plus, then you're getting a GCP, right? So you're going to be able to farm a lot of those. That's going to be absolutely massive. So that's another buff to this, right? Then the fact that we're getting the 30% movement speed on top of everything else, this is going to be a huge buff to early Heist as well. You're going to be significantly faster, because normally what you put in your boots would be something like phase run, and then you have like enhance, and then you have like increased duration, and then you have like withering step or something like that, right? So if you make some space in your other sockets, I already looked into like what can be moved, and let's say you can even like fit one like what are they called, the rings with the socket, right? You can have an unset ring and put the phase run there or withering step there, something like that, and basically have those boosts without the socketed gems. And potentially you could also have abyss jewels in them, so that's something also important to look for. You're gonna get 30% increased movement speed very early, because this is a one pointer as well, right? So as soon as you do like one quest for the Magi, right? This is the one that I'm going to be looking for. I need to figure out which color wisps are those. And basically, when you look at when you look for the into the league mechanic, right? You look for the Magi guy, and then first points you spend on the 30% movement speed, and it's going to be a huge buff, right? Then the biggest problem I have with running Heist is that I pretty much feel like forced into playing Toxic Rain again, Toxic Rain Raider, because I'm looking at every single other build and nothing is as good, right? Because the playstyle you want in Heist is basically playing something like Singed in League of Legends, right? If you're familiar with League of Legends, you're basically going to be running and things behind you are dying, right? You don't want to like skip killing things. You still want to have a functional build that can kill things so that you can farm maps, so that you can farm the league mechanic and get your own blueprints and get your own contracts, because especially with the rewards being at the end like less impactful, you're gonna be relying on the quality of blueprints. So the quality of your blueprints is gonna have a huge impact. For me, it always had a huge impact because of the way I played Heist, right? So my playstyle of Heist is a little bit buffed because of the like GCP changes, the addition of new uniques, buffs of the experimental bases, the fact that we don't have to like bother with like checking for like which gems are priced what way, you know, and stuff like that. There is much less, like, even though like with price checking macros this was still not that bad, but it's gonna be a little bit more profitable to run Heist. So when I run Heist, basically the way I do this is I farm my own blueprints and contracts. I farm the best quality stuff, and then the lower quality stuff I sell on TFT, right? So if I'm gonna be selling blueprints on TFT, they're gonna be garbage, right? They're gonna have like fewer rewards than the stuff that I run, because I'm spending all of my reveals on the absolutely best blueprints. So in short, Heist slightly buffed, but maybe I'm going to be playing Toxic Rain Raider. Maybe I'm going to figure out something else. If you have any idea for what could be a good build for an early Heister that also could do lab potentially, right? Because that's another thing. And that's definitely something I would like to hear from you guys. Definitely not something like BV, right? Because the problem with like BV, Poison BV, while you can make a fast character that kills stuff on the way, the problem is that eventually you're going to be moving so fast that you're not really hitting anything, right? You're going to be moving so fast that you like hit something once or twice and it's not really going to die. But when you're throwing Toxic Rain in front of you and your Mirage Archer is throwing it, it slows the enemies. They stay in it long enough to actually die to it. Plus single target damage for Toxic Rain is buffed a little bit, so that's actually pretty good plus, right? So that's my take on this. Heist buffed, really cool changes, really good league, high effort. I like it a lot. Potentially gonna do Heist and lab running as my league starting strategy. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the league, and see you next time.